A review of the left in regard to the war in Ukraine and Russia. Chapter 2. Chapter 1. See in the link below. 1. In reviewing the opinions of various leftists about the war between Russia and Ukraine, we often come across what seems to be a pragmatic approach. This means that the causes of the conflict are not discussed, because supposedly everyone knows that. Possible plans for a peace agreement are discussed, that is, options for how to end the war. However, as Hegel noted, what supposedly everyone knows is just the biggest mystery. He liked to say that such concepts as God, essence, concept, etc., supposedly have been known to everyone for a long time, but it is precisely in penetrating into their essence, their inner being, that the work of the mind consists. We are faced with the question of the need to understand the nature of this and other similar wars. After all, wars, like fires, have a different nature. Depending on what kind of fire we are dealing with, we must look for means to extinguish it or how to overcome it. 2. Almost all leftists consider Russia, Ukraine, etc. to be bourgeois states. I say almost everyone because there are still pleasant exceptions. See the photo. Some, and even the majority, who are particularly proud of their internationalism, also call Russia imperialism and the war imperialist on the part of Russia. For some reason, our leftists are silent about the nature of the actions of the NATO countries. But are Russia and Ukraine bourgeois or capitalist states? Putin and Yeltsin before him tried to appear bourgeois in front of the Western public, but Western imperialists, but not Western leftists, are not inclined to take it at face value.
Мы считали, что мы свои, буржуинские, мы хотим быть в этой семье так называемых цивилизованных народов. И в НАТО я удочки забросил, давайте у нас рассмотрим эту возможность. Щелк оттуда, даже рассматривать не стали. И давайте мы вместе сделаем, бум, значит, вот...
In the USSR, since the time of perestroika, the process of restoration of capitalism has been going on. The restoration process is as long a process as the conception and birth of a child. If the doctor confuses the phases of pregnancy, then he and the future mother are in trouble. However, our peppy leftists have already declared the restoration process as complete. It seems to us that they confuse the beginning of labor and the stage when the umbilical cord is cut and the new organism begins its independent life. But the real struggle for the USSR, for socialism throughout the world, is just beginning. 3. Was the USSR destroyed as a result of the transformations of 1991? In a formal sense, yes. As a single state, it no longer exists. However, in fact, all the republics of the former USSR inherited the state apparatus that has existed on their territory since the times of the USSR. These are both state and public social institutions, habits, way of thinking and acting. Is it possible to deny it? Look at state apparatus of Russia or Ukraine after 1991 and you will see officials from the apparatus of the USSR. For example, Putin was a KGB officer in the times of the USSR, and Leonid Kravchuk, the first head of independent Ukraine, was the head of the ideological department of the Communist Party of Ukraine. Look at the oligarchs, both in Russia and Ukraine, and you will see officials or their relatives who have reached the middle heights in the apparatus and then use this position to enrich themselves. For example, Misha Khodorkovsky is a former Komsomol worker under the USSR, and Yulia Tymoshenko is also a relative of a Komsomol leader. Look at such institutions as the army, medicine, police, etc., and you will find all this taken from the times of the USSR. No new institutions were created. On the periphery, for example in Ukraine, there is more corrosion than in the Central Republic, that is Russia. So by what right do the leftists call all these republics bourgeois, states and society? In fact, the slogan, "The USSR is alive," remains true, although formally, the USSR exists no more. The king is dead. Long live the king. 4. When privatization occurs, there is a conflict of interest, because one side has one thing and the other side has another. For example, Chechnya has oil and Russia has oil pipelines. Or Russia has gas and Ukraine has gas pipelines. A single planned economy cannot be divided up peacefully among predatory national bureaucratic groupings. This is similar to how the world could not be peacefully divided among the predatory imperialist states in the 19th century. It was possible to agree on some issues, but as a general trend, the world was moving towards a world war. Nationalism, however, as well as denazification, these ideologies are a product of the interests of predatory national bureaucratic groups that are trying to seize the wealth left after the collapse of the USSR. For example, how can Ukraine give the Nikolaev alumina plant to the Russian oligarchs when this plant produces aluminum and this is a valuable metal used in aircraft construction, yachting, and other advanced industries? The war that is taking place now in Ukraine and Russia has the character of dividing the inheritance of the USSR between bandits, or rather bandit groups. It is similar to the wars that we saw in Yugoslavia in the 1990s and which continue to smolder today. Witness the armed struggle between Serbia and Kosovo. It is similar to the small wars in Georgia, for example Abkhazia and South Ossetia, in Moldova, for example Transnistria, Armenia and Azerbaijan, the region of Karabakh, in Kyrgyzstan, the region of Osh, and Kazakhstan. There were numerous state coups. In a word, bandits cannot share the wealth peacefully. At the same time, NATO, the genuine imperialism, uses this war to destroy the Central Republic of the USSR, which is Russia, by means of Ukraine, or rather the Ukrainian soldiers, and they go to the slaughter like cattle, and they are being fed tales about their enemy being Russia, and they shout the Nazi slogan from the times of Bandera, Ukraine over all. 5. Where do we see salvation? Where is the way out of this situation? I found the correct slogan on one of the Telegram channels, not a war. Peace through the overthrow of those who send us to kill and die. And who are these people? First of all, the nationalist elites, both on the one side and the other. Putin's and Peskov's, Zelensky's and Budanov's, and local oligarchs, Kolomoisky and Poroshenko, Rothenberg and Deripaska. Then, last but not least, are the house managers from NATO, all these Borrells and Stoltenbergs, Millys, and Bidens, and also those who installed them, all these Hohenzollerns and Rockefellers, everyone who comes to the ball of the Satan. And here I mean an image from The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is the goal. Carthage must be destroyed. Today it sounds like this: the overthrow of those who sent kindred nations to kill each other, overthrow of the bureaucracy and oligarchs in the USSR, the overthrow of the capitalists in NATO countries. I think so. And what do you think? Please write in the comments. 6. Now the question of who is capable of performing such an action. Most of the left, such as Ivan Polyakov from YouTube channel Appeal to Reason, believe that the class-conscious proletariat will be at the head of the revolutionary movement. But this is from yesterday. Where and when was the proletariat at the head of a revolutionary movement after World War II? Take, for example, Poland in the late 1970s, and we see how the revolutionary energy of the proletariat was harnessed by elements that wanted the restoration of capitalism. During perestroika in the USSR and later, we saw how workers, for example miners, were used by various oligarchic clans for their own purposes. Communism is a classless society, which means that a person in this society cannot belong to any one class, but must absorb the best characteristics of various classes and strata. He must be intelligent when it comes to the conception and thinking of a project, and he must be a worker, a jack of all trades, when it comes to carrying out the project, its implementation. Today, we need to talk not about the right to work, as many leftists mumble. They who communicate with workers, go to the entrance gates of factories, etc. But we need to talk about the right to creative activity, which is designed to replace labor. Only creative activity has a higher productivity of labor than the most highly paid labor on capitalist basis. Only the creator can rise above the capitalist form of production. Only Leonardo da Vinci can stand over the priest who urged him not to be distracted and to paint the Last Supper as fast as possible. The image of Judas was painted from this Holy Father. This is the end. Please write to us at internationalleft@protonmail.com or leave your comments below. Thank you for listening.